Hey guys, it's Maymay, and it is time for our envelope mini album tutorial. And this is the one I'm doing with the fall break paper. I'm going to use the photos from my own fall break for this one. And the main thing for this album is I'm using these A7 envelopes. We carry these in the store. Actually, I'll have all this linked below for you if you want to pick up any of this and do this album along with me. But let's get started. So for this album, I'm going to use 5 envelopes. Now, I'm going to make this album very different from any way I've ever done before, okay? I have an envelope album on my channel that has more of a traditional binding. So if you'd like to see that series, I'll link it below. But for today, I'm going to do something I haven't done. And the reason I haven't is because I feel like it's kind of confusing, but I really love the way it looks when it's done. So if you'll just take your time and go along with me, you'll be able to make this happen too. But they just look good when they're finished. So I'm going to try this with you guys along with us. So 5 envelopes, which I don't need to do anything to. I'll put those aside for now. Then I went through the paper pack that I'm using and I chose a piece of paper that is my least favorite, in quotes. I love this page too, but I feel like this will be the least page that I would want to use for something else. But I really love this section with these little fall leaves. So I'm going to make my binding out of this. This paper will show, and this paper won't so much show. This will kind of be hidden in the middle. So I thought it'd be cool to kind of use the paper that I didn't want to showcase too much hidden in the book. Okay, so let me just show you something. Here's what I mean. This is my sample, right? See how this page is down in here? And I really like how that looks. I want these leaves to be in there. This part is not going to show as much, and I'm going to let this be that page. Anyway, just to give you a little heads up there. All right, so we need to cut this paper. But before we do, I want you to do this too. I want you to check your envelopes, okay? I want this binding to be the same height as my envelope. Just because an envelope says it is 5 by 7 does not mean it is. That means it will hold a 5 by 7 card, but it's a little bigger than that, so it has a little ease to it, okay? So I'm going to measure this piece and see just how long it is. And looking in my trimmer, this guy is right at 7¼ inches, okay? So I want my binding piece to be 7¼ inches tall. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out of this piece. So put this in and line it up at 7¼ inches. Now, I've already done the math for you guys. I've already done the layout for this. So I happen to know that this piece needs to be 11½ inches long. So I'm going to cut 1/2 inch off of it, just on one side. 1/2 inch is now gone. Okay, for this particular method, I'm going to recommend you use a scoreboard, okay? If you don't have a scoreboard, you still can make this happen, but it will not be as easy. But if you have a scoreboard, use it. And if you have a scoreboard that marks all of the 1/8 inches as well, that's a bonus, okay? If you don't have it, you know there's ways around it. We've talked about that before, how to get around that. But if you do have it, use it. Now, so you guys know how much I don't like to work in 1/8 of an inch. But for this album, I just really couldn't get around it. I just think it makes the album work. So we're going to have to do that. I want to show you what we're fixing to create. This is my test piece. It's not exactly right. I was 1/2 inch too short. That's why we're doing 11½ inches on this one. But this was just my beginner test piece. All these little score marks that you see here, that's what we're fixing to create. And I thought if I showed you this in advance, it would make what I'm going to do here make more sense. So this is where I did the math for you, is what I was doing here. So I'm going to have these numbers written for you in a blog post, so you'll know exactly where to score your paper, and then it'll make more sense, okay? So I'm going to sit this out of the way so I can use those numbers to show you. So with your 11½ inch side in your scoreboard, you're going to start and score in these places. You're going to score at 1 inch, 1½ inch, 2 inches, 2 3/8. This is where we get to those 3/8. 2 7/8. And let me give you a tip. If your scoreboard doesn't have the 1/8 inch mark, every little line for scoring is 1/8 of an inch. So if you need to count it, you can just count them. So that one was 2 7/8. Okay. Then 3 3/8. 3 7/8. 4 3/8. 4 3/4. We finally got back to an even number. 5 1/4. 5 3/4. 6 1/4. 6 3/4. 7 1/8. 7 5/8. 8 1/8. 8 5/8. I'm so glad this is marked for me. 9 1/8, 9 1/2, 10, and 10 1/2. Now, I already know that some of you are saying, nope, I'm done. That's too much work. The binding system I'm doing is a little more work than I normally bring to you, but when it's finished, it's so pretty. And if you can just hang with me and make it, you'll be so happy you did it because it's so clean and crisp and it just makes your album look incredible. It is confusing at first. I will give you that. Okay, now we need to fold this guy. The first piece that you scored, your 1-inch piece, needs to go forward. So this is going to be the piece that connects my front album cover to the album itself, okay? I'm actually using envelopes for the album cover because I think they're pretty. So this will hold my first album, my first envelope, okay? So I fold the first one up. Then I start to accordion. So at my next score, I want to bring it backwards and then forward. Now before I go any further, I'm going to stop right here. What we just created here is a slot for our first envelope to go in, okay? So my first envelope will go into here, and I will seal that down, and this will hold my envelope in place. That's the first page. I am taking my time to show you this because I want it to make sense. What's going to matter to you is these 3/8 inch pieces that we have here. These stay flat, okay? So I've got my little mountain fold right here. I'm going to leave this one flat and go to the next score and turn that up. I'm going to take my time and let this make sense for you, okay? After that, I can accordion fold the next 1/2 inch marks. And I want to make sure I get my folding nice and even because this will help you in the end. Spend the time on your folds here. Right on the score line. Right on the score line. Now I'm to another 3/8 inch spot, okay? So between here, I've left this 3/8 inch spot, okay? And I have another 3/8 inch. Now what's going to happen here is my second envelope will go in here. So I'll have one in the front and then I'll have one right here as well. And that'll be what holds my envelope in place. So I feel like showing you like this will make this make more sense as we go. So I'm just going to turn up that 3/8 inch spot and then I'm going to continue my accordion folding. And I want to leave this in the video. Normally I would like either fast forward through this or I would cut away because we're just accordion folding. But in all the videos I watched, it seems like a lot of the people cut away from this. And to me, this is kind of the most important part for you to understand what we're creating in the binding. All right, let's look at it again. So I have my front piece. I have a 3/8 inch spot that'll stay flat. I have my next two pieces that hold an envelope, my 3/8 inch spot that stays flat, my next two pieces that hold an envelope, my 3/8 inch that stays flat, and now we're going to do our next page holder. Again, it seems hard, and it is a little fiddly, but when this is done, the album is so clean and so pretty, and it's really kind of the easiest way to make a binding without having to do too much like engineering, believe it or not. All right, so I've made another page holder. I'm to a 3/8 inch spot, and now I'm going to start doing another little mountain fold. Okay, so now I can stop. All right, so let's look at it. And I'm leaving on this white so you can see it really well. All right, so first fold. This holds my first envelope, okay? This is flat. This holds my second envelope. This is flat. This holds my third envelope. This is flat. This holds my fourth envelope. This stays flat. And this holds my back envelope. Okay. And the reason I did this is because I want a nice flat binding back here, which will appear in just a few minutes. Now it's time to put our adhesive on. Now you might think you want to put your adhesive on before you do all that folding, but for me, on these busy pieces of paper, this helps me to see where my adhesive goes even easier. All right, I'm going to use sticky tape. So on this first 1-inch flap right here, you want to cover that whole piece in tape, okay? So I'm just going to run this down. Especially on this edge. This edge is going to be what's attached to your envelope, so you want to really get that all the way to the edge. And I'm just using a little 1-inch acrylic block to help me tear this so I can get nice straight tears. So I'm going to run about 3 pieces down the front here. Okay, tear that off. Let's do one more piece. tear that off. Okay, so this will hold the front envelope. I also need to have adhesive on this one so I can sandwich between those two. So the first 1 inch and the first 1/2 inch gets adhesive. Once you start to play with this, it'll start to make sense. You just have to kind of think toward the end product, okay? So these two pieces right there are going to hold an envelope when I get to that point, okay? Now remember, that 3/8 inch piece stays flat. I do not need to do anything to the top of it, but I need to come between this next little valley and put some in to hold another envelope, okay? So we're going to put adhesive in that valley right here. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I'm really stepping outside my box because I've always avoided these because they just look like too much work. I actually did a video doing this method a long, long time ago, making a little tag album, and it was so confusing for me at first, and I thought I'll never be able to teach this, but I'm kind of challenging myself to teach you this time. All right, so 3/8 inches flat. The next valley, we need to put our tape in because that's where an envelope's going to live. But I really want you to be able to do these because I think they're so pretty when they're finished. And for some people, this comes real easy and makes perfect sense if you have that kind of engineering brain. But I got a pretty simple brain. I have to try to figure this stuff out, right? All right, so there's that valley. There's my flat 3/8. I'm going to go to the next valley. Put some tape on it. And then some tape over here in the valley. Okay, now I've got that one to hold an envelope. I need the flat 3/8 section and then tape. Now remember, this is the cover part, or this is going to be actually what holds the back part of my album. So I'm going to fill up this 1 inch space with tape, just like so. And then I'll go back and put a piece on that little valley section. I cannot see the edge of that because of the way I'm sitting. Hope I'm getting that all the way to the edge. All right, and then I do want to put a piece right here because that's going to hold that envelope. So we got it all loaded up, okay? That's all the adhesive I need on the front section. So every valley, okay, valley, 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 and valley right here, because that's going to hold my envelopes, got adhesive. My 3/8 inch sections, I don't know if you noticed in the measuring, these were 1/2 inch, but these were 3/8. So this 3/8 inch, 3/8 inch, 3/8 inch, and 3/8 inch don't get adhesive here. Now let's flip it over. Okay, so now what I want to do is on all those 3/8 inch sections, those flat 3/8 inch, I want to add adhesive. And you'll see this when you're doing this in person. I can see it pretty good. And you don't have to do this now. You can put this side's adhesive on in a few minutes. Or you can do this at another point. So you don't have to do this now, but I'm going to do it now just because I know where these go after doing a sample one before. So I'll put this on that 3/8 inch section. Because this piece is going to be what we attach to a piece of chipboard to keep our book nice and sturdy. So there's another 3/8 inch flat spot. Right there. And I should have one more. So I've got valley, valley, flat spot right there. Now once you got adhesive on all your flat spots, I want you to come back and we're going to put adhesive on the inside of that flat spot on the valley. So here's what I mean by that. So you've got flat spot adhesive, come into the valley and put one piece here. So back to our flat spot, I'm going to go into that valley and put a piece there. This will come in handy in a minute. And you've got a flat spot there. I'm going to come into that valley in front of it. Just like so. And then I've got a flat spot, and I'm going to do this valley right here. Let me check this to see if it's going to need one. And then we're going to put one in this valley right there, the very last valley we've got. Okay, now we can start putting our envelopes in. So now I'm going to go back to the front, and I'm going to do these one at a time, all right? So I'm going to start with my front cover, and we'll peel all of this away. And remember, if you wanted to do like a border punch or something, you could do that here before you add your adhesive. So if you wanted the front to have like a little shape to it or something where it attaches to the envelope, that would be super cute. This is where you're going to see this start to make sense. All right, so don't go anywhere. Pay attention. Don't let me lose you. All right, this is the front cover of my album. And for me, that means I want this flap to be on the inside of my album. I don't want it to be on the front, okay? So I'm going to slide this in to this valley, just like so, lining it up on either end. Stick that down onto that adhesive that I already exposed there on that one piece. And then I'm going to close this over the top of it. I'm just going to close it like so, okay? So that, and I can squeeze it all the way down, that becomes the front cover of my album with the flap to the inside, okay? Now we're going to come in here. Remember I told you you're going to have that flat spot. We want that flat spot there. Now we need to put an envelope in this valley. So I'm going to peel this one off. Pick up another envelope. Now here you can decide how you want your flap to go. Do you want your flap to go this way toward the front, or do you want it to go to the back? I think I'm going to let it go to the back since I already have a flap on the front cover. However, I should say to you, these flaps can be adjusted as you go because they'll flip to either side. All right, I have this pushed down into that valley. I'm going to stick it down onto one side and then bring the other side over and sandwich that envelope in between that valley. See it? All this is going to come together at the end. You're going to be like, oh, but it's going to take a minute for it to get there, okay? All right, back to the valley. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Get me another envelope. I think I'm going to let this flap go to the back too. Again, I can adjust it later. Slide that down into that little valley all the way down. And then seal both sides up and sandwich that envelope. Got it. Okay, let's do two more. Same way. This dude. Okay, I'm going to lay it down in here into the little valley all the way down. And then stick that down to that one side of adhesive and then sandwich it in there with this guy. See how hard this is to teach? I think it's hard to teach. That's why I haven't done it. But sometimes we need to try hard things. That's what I'm going to try to do. We need to try hard things every now and then. And once this is done, the rest of the album will come together so easy. You're going to spend more time on this section than any of the rest of the album because the rest is simple and straightforward. Okay, stuck to it. All right, last envelope. This is the back of my album. So I'm going to let this flap come to the inside. Okay, so I'm just going to lay this down into that valley we created, lining it up on either end, pressing it down into my sticky tape, and then sandwiching it in that little area. All right, so this is what you should have now. You have your envelopes in the big valleys. That's what we'll call it. Back of your book, front of your book. Now we want to close this all together. Okay, so this is why we put that piece of adhesive in the valley next to the flat part. Okay, I'm not going to peel the adhesive off of my 3/8 inch section. I'm only going to peel in the valleys. Okay, so I'm going to start with this one and I'm going to close that up. I can already see I should have put tape on both sides of the valley. So if I've messed you up there, I'm sorry. I needed tape in this side too. So it looks like we need to do tape on both sides of the flat part. Go. All right, so I just went back and added into that valley some tape. I'm going to have to do that throughout, so I'll probably just stop and pause and go add that because I thought we only needed the one piece, but we need both. So now I'm going to seal this up. Just like so. And see that flat section that we've created right there? This is what is eventually going to go to the chipboard, and they'll be all down here, okay? So let me go back and add tape to all these little valleys. I missed it. Sorry about that. That's why I say watch. Keep going. Watch to the next step before you move on. This is not the end of the world. We're just going to add some adhesive in. So I've got adhesive there. I need to put some here because we just want to close all of these sections up. So I've got some there, and I think we're good everywhere else. Okay, so don't release the 3/8 inch section. Release the piece that's in the valley. Peel that off and stick it down. Again, leave that flat section. Just do these big sections. I hear you guys telling me right now I'm not making this album, it's too hard, but I really want you to push through. And then I want to see your pictures, how you've done it. You pushed through and you figured it out. We're getting there. We're getting closer. See, it's starting to make sense. Just give it 1 second. I'm going to finish this last one, and I'll be able to show you what we just created. And then everything I did will be like, oh, that's why we did it. Let's close that up. Okay. Now then, this is what we were accomplishing. You see our book? So now we have everything sandwiched in the front. We have all our pages sandwiched in the front, and we have this flat section. This is where all those 3/8" sections came into play. This will get stuck to chipboard. Okay, that's why we went ahead and put the adhesive on there. That piece of chipboard will make our book then hold in the shape of chipboard. Isn't that cool? It takes a minute, I know, but if you can get to this point, the rest is so easy because here it's just decorating now. Adding flaps and pockets and all the cute things. But let's go ahead and add our chipboard to the back here. And what I'm going to do, and I'm going to encourage you to do this too, because everybody's kind of scoring and stuff is different. You want to measure this after you get it done. Okay, so go ahead and lay this out and like crease it down really nice and snug. Get everything in there creased down. And you only want your chipboard to cover, let me get this creased as well. You only want your chipboard to cover the spine area of your book. Okay. So I'm going to take this ruler and I'm going to measure all the way up the width of my spine. So measuring here, I get 1 3/4. 1 3/4 will still work there. It'll still work there. We're good. So I'm going to do a piece that is 1 3/4 by 7 1/4 long, and that'll be my spine. So let's cut that out of chipboard. So here's my chipboard piece, and I've cut myself a piece of that same paper that I just used to use as my binding cover, or for my spine, I should say. And I want to have the leaves facing out. I think they're cute, so I want those to face out. And I cut this guy a lot bigger than you might think you'd need to. I want to show you. So this is my chipboard piece, okay? And my chipboard piece is 1 3/4 by 7 1/4. And I cut this one where I had a 3/4 of an inch piece hanging over. The reason for that, I feel like the spine of the book is going to get a lot of handling and holding. So I don't want to just barely turn this over. I want to make sure that it's really covered so that it doesn't take a chance of popping back out on us. So I left myself a 3/4 of an inch overhang. So I cut this one at 3 1/4 by 8 3/4. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back to our sticky tape, and on this little guy, doesn't matter which side, I'm using this white and craft. It doesn't matter because we're going to cover it up anyway, and we're going to put it onto our piece without seeing the raw side anyway. So I'm going to add some sticky tape to either edge. Turn that where I can see it. Just like so. Then I'm going to put a little down here in between those two pieces. And we're going to wrap this up in our cardstock. I'm also going to run some back here just to hold my cardstock in place when I put it down. So I'm just going to kind of run some in the middle. Just like that. Okay, let's peel this off. All right, and then put wrong side facing up, because this is what I'm going to wrap around, okay? And then bring our chipboard piece over and just kind of center it. It doesn't have to be perfect because I've left myself plenty of room, but we want to be close. Now, if I were using the lined side, you know, if these lines were going to show, I would want to make sure I was lined up on the lines perfectly. All right, now I'm going to reveal the adhesive here. And we're going to wrap this, but first, I always like to do this. I'm going to take my embossing tool, and I'm just going to run it around the edge of this chipboard piece all the way around. I find I get a much better bend when I'm wrapping chipboard if I do this. I get a cleaner bend, and I get a less chance of cracking cardstock. Now, this cardstock's not much on cracking. It's really good cardstock, but sometimes it can happen. All right, scissors. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to miter these corners. I want to come out from this corner about 1/8 of an inch, and I just want to get rid of some of this bulk. Not too much, because I don't want to expose my chipboard on the corner, but I don't need all this for wrapping around. So I'm leaving some, and I may be leaving more than I even need to, but I just want to get rid of some of this bulk. There we go. All right, it's time to wrap. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the chipboard to my advantage, and I'm going to use my work surface and press this like this. I'll press this side as well just to start that fold. If you spend the time on this, you get such a pretty spine, such a pretty wraparound. So now this can go in, okay? Do the end as well. Just use your fingers to help burnish and press it in place. On these bigger pieces, I'm going to start in the middle and then work my way down, sticking that down. And the same here. Then take your bone folder and just burnish that down into place. So pretty. Look how good that's done. Perfect. Let's put it on our book. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to reveal all the adhesive on the back of this spine. And this is going to be what really creates your book completely. Once you do this, you're ready to decorate. Okay, so what I'm going to do is sit this like this with all those pieces exposed. I'm going to use my table as an assist for me to keep this nice and straight. I'm going to bring that to the book, okay? Then I can lay it down, open the pages up very carefully here. I don't want it to slip around and move on me. Let me get my fingers in there a little bit. Let me press, just get down in there and press them into place. We'll open it all up once I get it stuck down because I don't want it to shift. There we go. All right, so now we can open pages, close pages, stick that in. And I'm just going to work it. Remember, you can train paper, okay? So I'm just going to flip these around back and forth and keep sticking everything down so you get a nice adhesion. Now, if you find that you have any lifting up as you're turning the pages, and you might, if you have it lifting up, take the edge of your bone folder, the back side, and just go in there and press that down. Just train the paper to stay down onto that spine. Some of them are doing better than others, so see I can get a pretty good flip. Some of them are not, but I feel like as we work the album, we'll get better and better movement out of it. It's a stiff binding because it's cardstock. It's kind of stiff, but I like it. I think it's going to feel nice and sturdy. So that is our book. We put the envelope album together. Now we just need to decorate it. I love how clean and neat that looks. And see how I worked it down nice and snug? You need to work that down, okay? So spend the time rubbing that into place with your bone folder. Now that we got our book assembled, now we're going to add in some flap pages. So let me show you what I mean. On the envelope flaps, I'm going to attach a piece of cardstock that is 5 1/4 by 7 1/4. So it's the same height as my album, and it's 5 1/4 wide. Now you can adjust this width ever how you see fit. I wanted it to be right to the binding itself. Do you see how it's right to it? But that's really close. If you want it to be a little shorter than that, you can. But I kind of like the idea of doing this at 5 1/4 because that means the pages I put on top to mat with can be like 5, and I like working with even numbers. So here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to use my tape again, and I'm going to run some tape along the outside of this envelope flap. Now there's a reason for that. You could tuck it under, but if you tuck it under, you need to allow for this score and give yourself a little bit of ease, which makes my page go into the binder too much. So that's why I'm putting it on the top of the flap. we're going to cover it up anyway. This is going to get sandwiched inside our decorations, so we're not too worried about that. So you will never notice it. Matter of fact, when somebody looks at this, unless you tell them it's made with envelopes, they're probably not going to realize it. All right, and then I'm going to just reveal the adhesive off of here. Just like so. And then line this page up and stick it down. And now we have a flap that will open. So we're just giving ourselves more space to decorate. Don't worry about this. You're going to put another piece of decorative paper here, and so you'll cover all that up as we get going. So don't worry about what it looks like now. We're going to get that better. And we even have a place to make a pocket here, and we're going to utilize that. I'm not exactly sure how yet, but we're going to. We'll see. Because you don't have to make a pocket, but I think it'll look cool as a pocket. All right, so I'm just going to run through, and on every flap, I'm going to put one of these pieces on to make that page we just made. So here we go. This is where we are so far. We've got our album built, envelope album. When you open it up, we have our flaps on every page. Oh, I should do it in the camera where you can see it. There's that flap. These flaps come into each other, so I may do some trimming and adjusting, but I can also send this one this way if I desire to, because I can just flip that around any way I want to. If the flaps feel too big for you, you can adjust yours too if you want them to be less wide, which I made mine kind of wide, and I can adjust them later if I want to, because I'm not really sure exactly where they're going, but I like having all of this space to work with. So that is your album so far. I'm going to call that part 1 because I feel like you're going to need to catch up with me for doing this together. And I'm going to flip this over. You know why? Because my page is going, the pictures are going the right way this way. So I'm going to call this the front. All right. And so this guy is ready to start building our pages and doing our decorating. All right, guys, thanks so much. This is part 1. I hope to finish this in 3 parts. So you may get some longer videos so that it's not, so that we don't go too much more than 3 parts of the video. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you again real soon. Bye-bye.